All right, let's dive in. Today we're going way back to the very beginning of Elvis Presley's career, like before he was even Elvis.
Yeah, before the king, before the spectacle.
Exactly. And we're lucky enough to have this amazing collection, A Boy from Tupelo, the complete 1953-1955 recordings, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's got everything, Sun Records, masters, outtakes, even some live performances from back in the day.
Talk about a time capsule, huh? What can we really learn about Elvis just starting out from all this, from these early recordings?
Well, I think you can hear his influences all coming together and, him kind of figuring out his own style.
So we got to start with the Memphis Recording Service acetates. These are from 53 and 54.
Yeah, before he even had a record deal. Imagine finding one of those in your attic.
I know, right? Crazy to think about. So these were basically like demos, right? What was he even singing back then?
Well, a lot of people are surprised to hear he was actually doing a lot of ballads,
Hmm.
slower, more romantic songs. Stuff like My Happiness, and It Wouldn't Be the Same Without You.
Really? So not the rock and roll we all associate with him later on.
Right. But it shows his range,
Mm.
Like he was already experimenting with different styles and trying to find his voice.
So what stood out to you about these early vocals?
I think the control he had, even then, it's really impressive.
Oh, yeah.
Uh-huh. You can hear this smoothness to his voice with just a touch of country twang, kind of foreshadowing what's to come.
I see. Like the building blocks were already there.
Exactly. And you can really hear those influences kind of merging together,
Mm.
laying the groundwork for that signature Elvis sound.
Makes you wonder what he would have sounded like if he had just stuck with ballads, huh?
Yeah, it's hard to imagine. But then we get to Sun Records.
Ah, Sun Records. That's where the magic really starts to happen, right?
Yeah. This is where he meets Sam Phillips, the founder of Sun Records, who had this amazing ability to spot raw talent. And boy, did he see something in Elvis.
So the Sun Record sessions, these are 54 to 55. That's where we start to see Elvis's style really take shape.
Absolutely. And it's this incredible fusion of country, gospel, and blues. It's unlike anything anyone had heard before.
And it's not just the polished studio stuff, right? We're talking about those raw experimental sessions.
Exactly. That's all right, for example. It's just pure energy.
Mm.
This collision of genres that kind of throws everything out the window.
And it's in those sessions where he starts using those, what do you call them? Those vocal hiccups and rhythmic shifts.
Oh, you mean from his gospel influences?
Yeah, exactly. Like that sense of urgency and playfulness he brings to those early tracks.
Right, and those were like totally new back then. I
Mhm.
mean, he really challenged the norms of the time.
So how did he actually blend all those different genres together? Like what was he doing specifically?
Well, one of the biggest things was that slapback echo effect on his vocals. It was still a pretty new technique then.
Oh, right. Like his voice kind of echoes and repeats.
Exactly. Creates this really cool sonic texture.
Yeah.
And you combine that with his driving rhythm guitar and that bluesy bass line.
And boom, rockabilly is born.
Pretty much. You can really hear that evolution in a song like Blue Moon of Kentucky. He takes this slow ballad and transforms it into a high-energy rocker.
It's wild how he could completely reinvent a song like that. Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? But we're not just talking about studio recordings here, right? A Boy from Tupelo also takes us to those early live performances and radio broadcasts.
Oh, for sure. You can't forget those. They really capture Elvis's raw energy and stage presence.
It's like you can almost feel the energy of the crowd right through the speakers.
Totally. And it's not just the music. It's like his whole attitude. It was something else, totally different for the time.
So how was he different? What was he doing on stage that was so groundbreaking?
Well, back then, most performers were pretty reserved, kind of like just stood there and sang.
Yeah, pretty straight-laced.
Exactly. But Elvis, he just blew all that out of the water. He was moving, shaking, and really connecting with the audience.
Just picture it, right? You're at a show back then, used to seeing these, like, stiff performers.
Right.
And then Elvis explodes onto the stage.
It had to be mind-blowing.
Yeah.
And the collection even features some recordings from the Louisiana Hayride shows.
Oh, yeah, the hayride. That was huge for him, right?
Oh, yeah, huge. It was a country music radio show broadcast all across the South. That was Elvis's first real taste of, wider exposure.
Yeah.
And boy, did he make an impression.
The crowds were going wild, weren't they?
Oh, totally. Some people were shocked, some were thrilled, but everyone was talking about it.
I bet. And then we also get some recordings from his early radio appearances. Like, wow. Talk about a time capsule.
Yeah, it's really cool to hear, like, his rise to fame kind of happening in real time.
It's almost like you can hear the buzz building around him.
Right, like this feeling that something big is about to happen.
Ah,
And, it's also interesting to hear him in these different contexts, not just singing, but also promoting his shows, doing radio ads.
speaking of ads, there's one in this collection where he's promoting a show at the Eagle's Nest in Memphis.
Oh, yeah, I remember that one.
It's just a short clip, but you can already hear that confidence and charisma just oozing out.
Definitely. Even then, you could just tell there was something special about him.
All right, so we've talked about the acetates, the sun sessions, those incredible live performances. But what really makes A Boy from Tupelo stand out as a collection? Like, what makes it so unique?
I think it's really the whole package. It's not just about the music, it's about the context, the story it tells. Like, the book that comes with it is amazing.
Oh, the book.
It's over 100 pages, full of rare photos, stories, memorabilia. It really gives you a sense of who Elvis was as a person, his background, his influences.
So it's like you're not just listening to the music, you're getting this whole immersive experience.
Right. It's like you're really going back in time with him.
And for me, these early recordings really highlight the importance of just trying things out, experimenting, and like you were saying earlier, finding your own voice.
Oh, absolutely. Elvis wasn't afraid to blend genres, to take risks, and that's what made him so revolutionary.
It makes you wonder what would have happened if he had just played it safe, right? If he had just stuck to one style.
I know, right?
Yeah.
The music world would be a completely different place. So what's the thing that stands out to you the most from listening to these early recordings?
Yeah, it's like he could have taken the easy route.
But he didn't.
He went all in and created something totally new and exciting.
And that's something we can all learn from, right?
Yeah.
Whether you're a musician or just pursuing any kind of dream.
It's about that willingness to experiment, to push boundaries, and yeah, like you said, find your own path.
Exactly.
So we've talked a lot about the technical stuff, his influences, his vocal techniques, but what about the emotional side of things?
Oh,
Like, why do you think these early recordings still resonate with people all these years later?
I think it's that raw authenticity, that passion in his voice, that energy.
Yeah,
It's like unfiltered,
it
uninhibited.
hits you right in the gut.
It does. And it reminds us of that feeling of hearing something truly new and groundbreaking, something that breaks all the rules.
But it's not just about rebellion, is it? There's also a vulnerability there, a real humanness to these recordings.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
That longing in his voice, that search for connection.
It's like he's pouring his heart out.
It's real. It's relatable.
Exactly. And I think that's why his music connected with so many people from all walks of life, It transcended genres and cultures because it tapped into something universal, something we can all relate to.
Those hopes and dreams, the heartaches,
The whole human experience.
wrapped up in those 3-minute songs.
It's powerful stuff.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into Elvis's early years, what's the one thing you hope our listeners take away from this?
I hope they go back and listen to these early recordings with, like, fresh ears,
Yeah, I really listened.
Not just for the hits, but for the little details, the nuances in his voice, how the instruments work together,
Appreciate the whole journey,
the evolution of an artist,
finding his way.
changing the world along the way.
And, even Elvis had to start somewhere, right? He faced those same doubts and challenges that we all do.
Yeah, he wasn't just handed success.
He had to work for it, keep pushing forward, experimenting, believing in his vision.
And that's a pretty inspiring message,
For sure.
It's a reminder that greatness isn't always about instant success, but about that passion, that perseverance, and the courage to be yourself.
Even when the world doesn't quite get you yet.
Exactly.
So we hope you enjoyed our deep dive into Elvis Presley's early years.
It's been a real treat for us.
And, we'd love to hear your thoughts on everything we talked about today.
What surprised you? What resonated with you?
What new insights did you gain about the king?
So keep exploring, keep listening, and keep that music playing.
And until next time.
Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.